Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm excited today because I have author Dr. Carol with us today. Dr. Carol is a former English teacher and now a practicing chiropractor and qualified medical examiner. And she has published 2 best-selling novels for adults, but now she has written a children's book with her granddaughter, Aria, called The Surprise Circus. And Dr. Carol told me earlier that writing this story was really her most gratifying accomplishment. And what's really important with our interview today is the climate in which we are living with the coronavirus and things like that. So with that, welcome, Dr. Carol.
Hello, how are you doing, Tammy?
I'm really great. I've been following your adventures with the Surprise Circus because you actually wrote the Surprise Circus with your granddaughter, and it's illustrated by a 15-year-old, Olivia.
Child labor.
And what's so interesting about that is it reminded me of when I was a little girl and my mom and I used to tell each other stories. So I've been having all kinds of great childhood memories, and reading is such a big part of my childhood, or was a big part of my childhood. And even it reminds me of my daughter and what an avid reader she was, and how today she's actually a publisher of books. So reading is a big part of my life. And I know that you have a very interesting background. So tell us more about how a former English teacher, chiropractor, qualified medical examiner who was writing adult novels decided to write a children's book.
Oh, I didn't decide. It just happened. My granddaughter and I were sitting in the backyard, and she lives in Connecticut, but she came out, and we were just talking about circus, and I know why, because I took her cousin to a circus. By the way, we had this is really funny. We had the top row seats because I was cheap. And I told him that these were the best seats in the house because you could see everything. Well, when he went home, his teenage brothers told him those were the worst seats. But anyway, and we were just talking about a circus. She said she'd never been. And I said, well, do you know who's in the circus? And what if the ringmaster sent you a circus person? And I said, what if he sent you the strong man? And it was her. She said, well, the strong man would lift up all the furniture in the house, even with people in it. And then we went from there. I said, well, what if the juggler came? And she said, well, he could throw things up. And we decided he might even throw up her baby sister. And then we got to, of course, the magician, and you know what the magician did with her baby sister. But we just it just came organically, and it was, I have to say, her imagination. Now, she was only 5 then, so she didn't know how to read, she didn't know how to write. So I did do all the writing, but it just took off, and within an hour we had the whole story.
That's really fascinating. It just proves that when you actually start talking to a child and you let your imagination run wild and you start asking questions, you could end up with a book. And another thing that's interesting about the Surprise Circus is you of course, it's a children's book, and children's books are illustrated. How did you end up with Olivia Target, who's 15 years old, illustrating the book?
Well, I wanted the book, something that most people don't even know. Dr. Seuss is not a real doctor. That's an honorary degree. But every one of his books has, well, not every, has moral, like who's youer than you. And I decided I wanted my book to have fabulous colors, maybe like Andy Warhol, and that was my imagination, and also to have a moral, but we'll get into that in a minute. To get to the illustrator, I saw one of my friends posted a picture that her daughter had done. And I said, that's the style I want. And her daughter was 15. I mean, and whatever was in my mind, she put on paper. And we didn't even go back and forth more than once on some of the pictures. Everything she was able to do, spot on. It was, and the cover, the little girl, I had drawn that, and I'm not even an artist. And that's what I sent to her, the picture that I drew. And she just took it from there. And everything she did was like spot on in my mind.
Wow. So
the colors, everything.
Isn't that interesting how you have a 5-year-old who's now 6 and a 15-year-old and you, and the three of you let your imaginations run wild. So I have a really big question. You actually have one of the most famous motivational speakers in the world right now is Les Brown, and he wrote the foreword to your book, and he really thinks that the Surprise Circus is valuable for parents and grandparents and anyone to read to children. How did that come about?
Well, actually, his grandson is even in the book, and so is he. Because his grandson, who I've met, he's adorable. His grandson in the book is Aria's friend. And his grandson tells Aria that she has to believe in herself because she's nervous about being the ringmaster of the circus now that she has all the people in her backyard from the circus. And he said, what are you great as? And my teacher tells me I'm smart. My bus driver tells me I'm a good bus buddy. My daddy tells me I'm beautiful. And she finds her one thing, which is she's a great big sister. And whatever it is, children have to find that thing that they're great at. So I decided that I wanted to take his message of you have to believe in your greatness. And also, he also says, as I'm sure you know, you got to be hungry. And when the little boy says to Aria, you got to be hungry to make this circus a success, she says, well, we'll serve popcorn and people can eat the popcorn. And he says, no, that's not hungry. Oh, let me read it. Hungry means, and I'm going to look for it because it's means believing in means wanting it. So here, being hungry means when you really, really want something, you have to be willing to work as hard as you possibly can in order to get it. So children have to know that they have to be hungry and be willing to work for whatever they want. So that's the message. Now, how did I get Les to write the foreword? One of my friends knows him quite well, and she I've met him numerous times at another mutual friend's house. And I've even studied some speaking with him because when I decided I wanted to also keynote, which I've done a lot of, and I then told him about this concept, and he said, it's never too early to motivate children. And he was on board and wrote the foreword, and the rest is history, really, because so many of the great motivational speakers, or great people actually, only deal with adults. And really, children are, what did he write? Children are our future. I mean, children are the people, and I use that word, we have to motivate now.
Well, I think you're absolutely right on that. And not only do our children need to understand that you have to be hungry and you have to be willing to work, but right now we're in the middle of something, and this podcast is done in the middle of the coronavirus situation, where many of us are literally at home, and you actually were on a nationwide speaking and television tour when you had to make a decision. You were in Florida and you live in California, so that's 3,000 miles, right? And you had to make that decision about coming home. And so how did you shift or pivot how you're doing your speaking engagements and the book plan and the TV appearances? What are you doing now? What came out of that pivot that you hadn't expected?
Well, last Thursday, almost a week ago, I was supposed to have keynoted in Miami. And of course, my husband and I decided before that to turn around and head back home. And the person who was facilitating the meeting, an eWomen chapter, asked if I would be willing to do it on Zoom. And I said, sure. So now I'm becoming this technical wizard, not really, and learning so I did my keynote on Zoom, and I never sat down and did a keynote before, but it was kind of fun sitting down and doing it. And, we just have to adapt, is what I learned. That, and we luckily made it home in time, because a lot of the RV parks were closing down. So we were very lucky in that respect that we made the decision when we did, because the day we got home, most of the RV parks in California were closing. So we really lucked out.
I brought that up is because there's so many people now who, let's say they're speakers or authors on tour or TV appearances. Obviously, a lot of those things, they need to be canceled because everything in the news is, all about the news of the day and what's going on. But what I think is so interesting about that is the fact that people are finding that they can go out and speak via Zoom or GoToMeeting or webinars now, when a lot of people have been doing that for a long time, but more and more average people or ordinary people now are realizing, oh, I can still communicate, I can still do my speaking. And then you're also being booked on podcasts. And I know you're going to be on some educational podcasts. And you said something the other day, and I believe you actually posted a link where you are reading the stories via video. Is that right?
Yes. And I also did did readings of some of Dr. Seuss's books, because yes, parents. I'm sure you know that a lot of celebrities are doing the readings too, which I saw after. And but yes, you as parents, you're trying to manage your job, you're trying to manage the homeschooling and also reading. But how amazing would it be if you had a few minutes break when your child is sitting down and someone else is reading them a story? And yes, it's important to read to your children. There's nothing that would take that away. But if you had a few minutes where you knew your child was occupied and you could make dinner or do something, and just a little break. So not only am I reading, because to be animated and read a book is easy for me. I mean, I was an English teacher and I loved reading to important passages to the children. But it's also, instead of the TV, something to occupy the child's mind and ask questions and interact in whatever way possible.
And before we got on the call today, you even mentioned something about that now would be the perfect time to write a book with your child or grandchild. And then you described, of course, how you and Aria did that. So if you were to give people some advice about how to write a book with your child or grandchild, what would you tell them?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm thinking, well, first of all, hopefully, we're never going to have another time where we have our child's undivided attention, right? I mean, there are no friends knocking on the door. So I think that, getting them to think about what would happen if, and just go with it. If you're, or your child's, here's another thing. One of my children is quite a good athlete. My grandchildren, we have 12, and he's an amazing athlete. And I said to him, how is it that you're not nervous when you're out there on the basketball court and all these people are watching? And so to take that skill, that ability, and use that and write a story about a child who isn't afraid to be out there performing, or to take whatever your child's strength is and make that child a character in a book, to teach other children. That's not what we did in the Surprise Circus. We used, fantastic circus characters, but even sports characters, or whatever would captivate your child's interest the most, and run with it. Like if your child is a wonderful, incredible person in spelling bees, write a story about a child who's in a spelling bee. Just anything that your child does well, and make that the character. That's what I would suggest.
I like that idea, because it's, number one, it's creative, and it's something that you can do together, and it's productive, and you're using that imagination. So many people right now, they're like, well, what can we watch on Netflix or whatever? But instead, it could be, what can we do to use our imaginations and come up with our own stories that we can tell? I just think that would be so cool, because I remember, like I said, it brought those memories back with my mom and I, and her story always was around, it was a bunny rabbit named Dumb Bunny, and Pandora. Pandora was the smart bunny. But we had those rabbits on all of these adventures, and we would tell the stories, to each other. And it brings back such wonderful memories because, those two little bunny rabbits went on all kinds of adventures. And where we lived, it was like they were out there in the woods next door to my house. So in my imagination, I knew exactly where those little bunny rabbits were playing and where the water was and everything. So lots of good memories. So right now,
can you imagine if you had that written down?
Oh, I know.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
It would be wonderful. And I remember my daughter actually wrote some stories about her son and illustrated them and published them. And I'm thinking about those as you were speaking, they were coming to mind. And I was just thinking, wow, I should go look at those because it's been a while since I read those stories. But it's such a valuable thing that you could do right now with your child, and then just reading to them. Like you said, Dr. Seuss books. The other day, somebody posted the Dirty Harry book series, which is about a dog that's always getting in trouble. And I used to read all of those books because I probably considered easy readers back in the day. But I think about all of my trips to the library and how I would pick out the books and I would read the books, and big memories of all of that. And the Surprise Circus, I've seen it and read through it, and the illustrations are very, very well done, and the colors are pop, and it's a very nice book. So right now, the book is available as a Kindle book, a downloadable digital book. Is that accurate?
Well, they can pre-order the Kindle, but it will be available April 7th.
Okay.
The hardcover, we did a hardcover. We did not do a soft cover because we really wanted it to look substantial and to be a book that the children are going to just read over and over again. So yeah, the Kindle pre-order is now, but on April 7th, they can order the hardcover.
Okay, so the hardcover book will come out and the Kindle's available in pre-order, and you can order those via Amazon. Is that right?
Right, right.
Well, that makes it easy because almost everybody can go find that. So it's The Surprise Circus by Dr. Carol. And is it under Dr. Carol or Dr. Carol Soloway?
No. It's written by Dr. Carol and Aria Soloway.
Okay, I've got it. So, and Aria, okay. And so watch for it, everyone. And I have been pushing out information about the book in my online social media as you have. And also, you were also featured before your tour got shut down. You actually appeared on TV in Arizona. So that video of you on TV is available on YouTube right now also. So I just watched that earlier today. So that was fun.
It was a bad hair day, if anybody wants to see.
But you also, not only do you have the children's books, but you have other books that are available. So if anybody was looking for you, they can go check out your website too, right? And what is that address?
www.carolsoloway.com. But the books are all under Carol Soloway on Amazon.
Okay.
My women's, well, I call them women's books, and they were both bestsellers. And Gracie's Gone, actually, we're right now, although that stopped, someone at Hallmark was going to review the script, which we're finishing up. And that was really exciting. And that was a Reader's Choice Award also, the Gracie's Gone.
Wow.
So that was pretty, they were both bestsellers, and but nothing is as exciting as the children's book, because to write something and have it a physical book with your grandchild, I mean, that's just beyond exciting.
Well, just think, your little granddaughter starting off as a best-selling author at age 5 to 6, and then the illustrator at age 15, Olivia Target, that gives her a launch into some really early career choices, I guess, if you think about it. But that is really a great way to start, and it really helps with exactly what Les Brown was talking about in helping children understand that they can do whatever they want to do, and that you can support all of those hopes and dreams and all the positive things. And we need more of that in general.
Oh yeah, and someone reviewed it. Heidi Lynn, she writes reviews. I sent it to her on a lark, and she said it was one of the cutest stories she's ever read. So it's getting, and it was I don't know, a #1 new release. I didn't even know how that happened, but so we're really excited, and of course we have several others in the works that we will do when we after we ever finish launching this one, because we have a couple of others that we did, Aria and I kind of started. So it's as far as her career, I don't know. She wants to be a ballerina. I don't know how that's going to happen, but actually she told me, which would be a great book, that she wants to be a ballerina, but she told me there's a problem. Her parents don't really want her to be a ballerina because they're both attorneys. So,
well,
but who knows?
But the beautiful thing about a child's imagination is that as long as you help them and empower them, that they can achieve whatever their dream is. And like most children, I remember I look back at all the things I wanted to be. I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to be a cancer researcher.
Wow.
I wanted to be a foreign diplomat. I wanted to go into advertising. And then, of course, I landed on journalism. And now, of course, I'm in mass communications and authority marketing. So I look back, and all of those dreams of mine, I know why I had those dreams at the time, but I can see that I developed as a person. So that's what's so exciting. And I think that the Surprise Circus, the reason why I think Les Brown really decided it was a phenomenal book is because of the fact that it is allowing the children to really open up their minds and to have the possibilities. They're empowered. And I think that reading empowers people. And I know you know that because you're a former English teacher. Also, you were talking about doing something with having children write something. What was that? Or what is
that was before homeschooling got underway. I said, send me a paragraph and I'll pick some and teach you how to write a paragraph. But I think that the schools have really gotten the homeschooling under, children have their curriculum, they have their homework. So that need has been answered by the schools, I think. Okay. Because I thought, are they going to do what are they going to do? Send me a paragraph and I'll go over how to write a paragraph. But I think that right now it's more, the children are more challenged with doing their assignments at home.
Yes.
And putting something else on their plate would not be appropriate. So, we got to be flexible and willing to change.
Right. Well, I'm really excited that you took the time to tell me the behind the scenes story about the Surprise Circus and about the fact that you're going to come up with some more stories and books with your granddaughter, and I really like the idea, the suggestion that other people can take from you to say, hey, why don't you tell your children stories and write them down, and you could come out of this with some great stories. And there's a whole nother thing we could talk about, related to publishing. But at this point, I just want to really say thank you for sharing the Surprise Circus with us. And I want everyone to know, go to Amazon, the Surprise Circus, Dr. Carol and Aria Soloway. It's there on pre-order, and the hardcover book comes out April 7th, so you can get that. And more than anything,
and the pre-order is only 99 cents now.
Yeah, but more than anything, read with and to your children starting at a very, very young age. Even babies, you can read to them and tell them stories, because it helps them to bond and to develop with you. So before I let you go, Carol, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, sure. You just said stories are bond, and stories are the way we connect, the way we communicate, really, and that has been for centuries. I mean, telling stories is how our history got started, really. So it's the stories that are what we're about, and stories define us, and that's how we connect with each other. You tell someone your story and you're cutting through so much, and you really, really are bonding when you know the person's story. And that's, so work on your own stories as well as your children's, really.
Well, that's good advice. So everyone, thank you so much, Carol. I really appreciate all the time you took with me today. And everyone, go make it a beautiful day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.